Consulting Growth Hour is a community and event series. We meet every 2 weeks on Thursdays at noon Eastern, and every session is a different topic on consulting growth. So if you attended the previous session, the first of this year, then you might have seen the entire calendar. I'll share that with you a little later in the session. But today, as you can see, we are going to be focusing on from feast and famine to stability. How do you create a plan for consulting success and, more importantly, specifically consulting growth, right? So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Fahim Musa. I am a former management consultant, founded a firm called Springboarders in Toronto in 2009, right in the middle of the Great Recession. And since then, I've sold over 200 consulting engagements, and I've worked personally with over 50 independent consultants and boutique firms very, very closely to grow their sales pipeline and consistently add new clients. And I worked with clients across the board, from Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies, other large organizations, mid-sized organizations, small businesses, government agencies, nonprofits, and so on. And I use all that experience and help consultants to grow their sales pipeline and build a thriving consulting business. So who is this session for? Primarily B2B consultants who work in fields such as strategy or operations or leadership or digital transformations, marketing, sales, and more. If you serve organizations as a consultant, or if you serve business owners, small businesses as a consultant, then this will be relevant to you, especially if you're an early stage consultant who've started a business in under 5 years or so. You have a consulting solution that works and have at least one client. Now, the reason I say this is because today's session is about high-level planning, and although some of you may be very, very new, or some of you listening to the recording on the podcast may be super new, there are a few things that you need to be doing before we get into the strategic planning framework that I talk about. And those things are like identifying who your customer is, building a value proposition, building building messaging that resonates, and so on, so that you are catering to a problem in the marketplace. Those things I've spoken about earlier, and you'll find all of this in my free community called the Consulting Growth Hub, which I'll share the details of in a bit, so you can join. So all of those topics are the resources are available. And so today what we're going to be talking about is how to build a plan to execute your objectives and goals when you are balancing client delivery and wanting to build a sales pipeline. And this can be a constant challenge for many consultants who are in the early stages of their business. And it certainly was for me as well in the early days. I'll tell you a story about one of my clients, one of my first clients. This was an outsourcing business. It was an outsourcing and offshoring business located here in Canada. And what they did was various types of business processes for large organizations. And this was my client. And I started with them, helping them with strategic planning, because that was my forte. That was my core expertise, and ended up building a great working relationship both with the owners of the firm and with the other members of the staff and the management team. And so anytime they had a problem, they would come to me for and ask if I could do it. So they would come and say, hey, can you do, you did strategic planning. Can you put together a marketing plan? Can you put together something else? Can you put together some training for us, et cetera, et cetera. And those were early days for me. So, and, I had rent to pay, I had bills to pay. So I would simply take on more work, even though it was, you know, not my core expertise. It was adjacent to my core expertise, but I would still take them on because, frankly, I needed the cash, right? So it it came to a point where 80% of my revenue, and still I was a solo consultant back then, 80% of my revenue came from that one client. And just unknowingly, I knew that I was doing a lot of work for them, but I didn't do any analysis and I was super busy to look for other clients. It often happens with us consultants, balancing client delivery while building a pipeline, because building a pipeline of new prospects can be challenging if you don't know the process, right? It's not just about, building a list of leads. It's about having the right offering. It's about testing the offering. It's about ensuring that your messaging is right. It's about then creating lead generation or some kind of content um, plan that would bring leads in. Then you have a sales conversion process where you convert those warm leads into paying clients, your proposal processes, et cetera, et cetera. So the entire process can be very challenging. And of course, there's a mindset thing going on as well, right? Because, you reach out to certain clients or certain prospects, they don't get back to you. Then you figure out, okay, how do I do this? Maybe they're not interested. Am I doing something wrong? And sometimes, you just shy to reach out. You don't know what to do, right? Because we are domain experts in our own field, but we don't know how sales and marketing work. Most of us have not had training in that area. And so we get stuck. And when we get stuck, we simply brush it under the carpet, right? So that kept happening a lot. And in the end, I lost the client because, you know, quality fell. My client delivery wasn't up to the mark because I wasn't taking on core expertise work. And that kind of affected my business. Clients noticed that I wasn't delivering the best work as before. Before I was doing strategic planning and business planning, and I was good at that, and they appreciated it. But then the other work, I was not so good at it, still took it on, and didn't work out. So it was a huge lesson. And that's what I mean by feast or famine. Like one day you have a lot of business, and the next day you don't. Or one day you have decent income, and the next day it kind of um, um, drops by a huge percentage, and you go up and down, and that's what a roller coaster income is. Not a fun place to be. So if you have faced such scenarios in your consulting business, or are facing such scenarios, then you'll hopefully find this session useful. For those of you listening to the recording on the podcast, head over to Consulting Growth Hub. You'll find the details in the show notes, and then you can follow along with the visual presentation as well. Right. So let's get into it. From feast or famine to stability, your 4-step plan for consulting success. Right. So let's just get into those 4 steps. Right. The first thing you want to do if you're facing, feast or famine, or you want to plan, is you want to first identify your core roadblocks. And for those of you who attended the last session, the previous session, I left you folks with a question that would help you identify your core roadblocks. Anybody who attended the last session, you want to type that in, that would be helpful. Type that into the chat. But before you start planning, right, the first thing you want to do is identify what is holding you back. Figure out what's holding you back. And I found a very useful way to do this. And I hope that some of you may find it to be helpful as well. And so this is the question you want to ask yourself to uncover your roadblocks that then lead to your top priorities, right? So here's what you want to ask yourself. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would I rate my consulting business as a high growth business? So I'm assuming all of you want to grow your consulting businesses. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your consulting business as a high growth business? Okay. Simple question, can take some time to think. It can take some time for you to think about it, but just write down whatever comes to your mind, and put down a number between 1 and 10, right? And then you want to ask yourself, why is that not a 10, right? You're on a business, and why have you not rated your consulting business as a 10? So you'll think of some reasons, and think of about 2 or 3 reasons. It doesn't have to be 2 or 3; it can be even 1. But if you haven't rated your business as a 10, then there must be a reason why that is so, and that's what you want to highlight, right? So why have you not rated your business as a 10? And you may come up with a number of reasons, such as, I'm too dependent on a few clients. That's why I haven't rated my business as a 10. I don't have time for business development. And so I don't have a strong pipeline. And that's why it's not a very high growth business. We don't have a steady flow of leads. Big one. Big problem for most small firms. We don't have a steady flow of leads. Our proposals or offerings are not converting well. It could be a problem you folks are facing as well. We are undercharging for our services. Again, huge problem across the board, right? I struggle to stand out from competitors. We're not leveraging technology effectively, and that's why we're not scaling. And we're not getting referrals or repeat business. So you see, this is not an exhaustive list. These are just examples to get you to start thinking about what your roadblocks are specific to that rating that you mentioned as to why you're not a 10 on 10 high growth consulting business. And again, these are not exhaustive. Think about your business and write down those reasons of why. What's holding you back? All right. Feel free to type in the chat for those of you live, and let me know what your answer is. It would be good to, and then for those of you who want to come on, unmute and talk about it either now or even later on, we can do that. And so I can even help you kind of, clarify what the core issue may be. But for now, we will just keep moving forward. So identify a roadblock, number 1. And step 2, once you've identified that roadblock, you want to determine 2 to 3 strategic priorities. And that's the corporate way of saying that, strategic priorities. But what it obviously means in everyday language is figure out what matters most now, right? You want to figure that out. In light of those roadblocks, you've identified the roadblocks, and now turn them into what matters most now. And here's how you do that. So I've listed out some challenges. Take a minute to read this. Well, not a minute, but a few seconds. For those of you listening on the podcast, what you want to do is list out those challenges and then translate them into priority. So if you're not getting enough referrals, if that's the biggest challenge that's holding you back, then something that you may want to be doing as a priority is to improve your client experience or relationship management. If your challenge is, I don't have time for business development, then your priority should be freeing up more time for sales and marketing as a consulting founder, because consulting founders must be involved in sales and marketing and business development. I'm highly opinionated on that because I've I've seen what would happen when a consulting firm owner outsources sales or just hires a salesperson without actually doing the sales yourself, because nobody's going to be as interested in your business to grow your business as you would be. So consulting founders and any small business founders must learn how to market and sell their business. It's a high growth skill, and once you do that, once you know that skill, your business is never going to go hungry, right? So I don't have time for business development. Make that a priority of freeing up time. Make it a priority to free up your time and focus on sales and marketing. A challenge could be we don't have a steady flow of leads. Priority, build a reliable sales pipeline. Challenge, our proposals and offerings are not converting. Then refine service offerings and messaging. We are undercharging. So raise prices and focus on high value engagements. We're not leveraging technology to scale effectively. So your priority should be to implement tools and systems to streamline processes. Again, these are all examples, right? Just to spur your thinking. You decide for yourselves what roadblocks you are facing and those associated priorities, right? Because those priorities will help you then focus on, okay, what do you do next and how do you execute and bring those priorities to life. So what I want to do now is take a little bit of not a detour, but I want to, move, take a break from those 4 steps and do a mini lesson on how to think strategically. Also known as how to focus on what really matters in plain speak. Because what we're doing is strategic planning. And, people throw out this word a lot, strategy. And strategic focus and strategic priorities and whatnot. And I'm guilty of that. I use these terms a lot. But what it really means is thinking strategically means focusing on what really matters and focusing on and not focusing on what doesn't matter. And there's a way to kind of there is a framework that I want to introduce to you that will help you do this. So let's get into that. But right before that, I want to, for those of you who are interested, to access a replay of all of these ideas and this entire session. I want to invite you to join a Consulting Growth Hub, my free community. You'll see the QR code on the screen. For those of you who are listening in on the podcast, you'll see the link in the show notes. Just go to that page, or you can go to bit.ly/consulting growth. That's bit.ly/consulting growth, and simply join that community. It's a free community for now, where you'll get access to all of these replays. We're on session 61, so you'll have all 61 sessions on all various topics related to consulting growth. And you'll have a community of other consultants as well there, where you can, get to know and share ideas and so on and so forth. So I would love all of you on this call to join this community. There's no, you're not going to be sold into something. It's a community where like-minded consultants come in. And I know that you folks who are on the live call and listening to the recording of the podcast, you're interested in the topic of consulting growth. So go ahead and join. And also, these sessions are free, right? And they'll always be free. So I would love for you to support Consulting Growth Hour in any of these 3 ways. If you can, send me a testimonial or feedback via LinkedIn or on the chat in this session, or send you an email. Rate and review the show on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Number 2, spread the word. Tell your fellow consultants about Consulting Growth Hour, because nobody else in this space has sessions like these for free for the consulting community, recurring sessions. Consultants who are interested in building a thriving business will benefit. So please go ahead and tell your fellow consultants about this show. And finally, please like, comment, and share my posts on LinkedIn and YouTube. Your engagement will help the show grow and get more people to benefit as well. Right. Thank you for that. Thanks for listening. Let's get back into how to think strategically. We've done a couple of things as of now. We've talked about identifying your main roadblock, and number two is figuring out what matters most, determining those, 2 or 3 strategic priorities. Before we move forward, let's talk about, okay, how to focus on what really matters and how to think strategically. Here's an example, right? Let's say that your objective is to have the nicest house in the neighborhood. Okay, this is not a business example, as you can see. So you have an objective of having the nicest house in the neighborhood, right? You can call it your mission, you can call it your goal, you can call it your objective, whatever it is. That's what you want to do. Okay. So what do you do beyond that? How do you take this forward and ensure that you are focusing on what really matters and not going haywire with doing all, various things that are going to move you away from that specific objective. So in order to have the nicest house in the neighborhood, you want to think about what really matters most now, right? AKA your strategic priorities. So in this example, it could be sprucing up your backyard. It could be updating the style of the house. And it could be adding more living space. Those are what you or this individual, whoever is doing this exercise, has determined that these are the priorities. These are, when you talk about strategic priorities, this is the link between your objective and more on the ground action items, right? So how do you kind of prioritize and think of 2 or 3 core buckets of priorities that would then help you break down this goal further into smaller initiatives, such as these. Now, if you want to spruce up your backyard, you may want to do a couple of things. Build a new deck. You want to landscape the garden. Let's say you want to update the style of the house. That's your strategic priority number 2. You break that down into initiatives. So you model the facade or add a modular kitchen. Strategic priority number 3, add more living space, could translate into building a sunroom extension. Notice how it gets more and more concrete as you go down these levels. And then finally, these initiatives, namely build a new deck, landscape garden, remodel the facade, add a modular kitchen, build a sunroom extension. These can be then further broken down into action plans, right? So when you want to build a new deck, maybe an action plan would be consult a designer, buy lumber, schedule labor. You want to landscape the garden, ask your spouse what they would like. Who here agrees that is a great idea? It has to be. And then hire a landscape architect based on what you folks decide. Then for remodeling a facade, your action items can be install new siding or install new windows. Adding a modular kitchen broken down into choose your color theme, design layout, select appliances. You see how immediately actionable these items are at the bottom. That's because you have broken down your objectives into specific stages, specific levels, and you're kind of, breaking them down into things that you can do or things that you can delegate. Build a sunroom extension. So you determine the footprint and you choose finishing materials, right? Those are your action plans, and those action plans should be accompanied by who's going to do this? Are you going to do it yourself? Are you going to delegate? Are you going to hire a vendor? When must it be done? What's the timeline? What is the budget? How much is each of these action items going to cost? And what is this dependent on? Are there specific dependencies for each of these actions, right? Is one thing dependent on something else that needs to be done, right? So type and let me know in the chat if this is useful, because this framework can be used to achieve any objective, whether it's personal or whether it's business, where you break down your high level objective into strategic priorities, followed by strategic initiatives and then action plans, right? So your objective is a high level objective. Then your strategic priorities are your 30,000 foot level priorities. And then coming down to, maybe 10 or 5,000 feet would be your initiatives. And then finally, your action plans are ground level. What needs to be done and when they need to do it, who's going to do it, and so on, right? So that's a way to start thinking strategically. Again, strategy is just another fancy way of focusing, right? And when you have a framework such as this, it helps you focus better. Type in the chat and let me know if this is useful or if you have any questions along the way. I will be taking questions in the end. If any of you want to jump on and have a conversation about your specific situation and how you want to plan, you have a specific planning question about your business, let me know as well. Right. So let's move on to step 3 in the process. Remember, the first couple of steps, number 1 is determine your roadblocks. Number 2 is determine strategic priorities or what to focus on right now. And now, step 3, as you saw in the example that I just showed you, you want to determine your initiatives and action plans. So go one level down. So make sure that you stay till the end, because step 4, I think, is the most important, because that gets into I'm going to introduce you to a newer concept which I've never spoken about on this show. So we'll get to that. But step 3 is breaking down your priorities so you can crush them, where you determine initiatives and action plans. So let's look at an example here. Now, let's say that in your consulting business, you've determined your strategic priorities to be, number 1, we don't have a steady flow of leads. Our proposals are, okay, so these are actually challenges, but your priorities are, associated. So we don't have a steady flow of leads, which means you need to build a pipeline. Our proposals offers are not converting, which means you need to create offerings and newer offerings and proposal structures. We're not leveraging technology to scale effectively. An associated priority for that challenge is to ensure that you select the right types of technology that would help you scale. So one level below that would be your initiatives. So initiatives for the leads priority would be create an outreach strategy, for example. These are all examples. It could be anything based on whatever you feel your business needs. Another initiative, it could be invest in content marketing. For the proposal and offerings priority, your initiatives could be conduct customer interviews to understand why the offers are not converting. And then another initiative could be build a new offering. For the strategic priority that where you're not leveraging a technology, or where you need to leverage better technology, your initiatives could be use a CRM to manage leads, or it could be something like leverage AI tools to writing tools in writing and analysis. Now, again, these are examples, right? It depends on your specific business situation where you need to determine what your business needs and what those specific initiatives are. I apologize for the slide where strategic priorities should be listed as opposed to the challenges, which I mentioned earlier, but I hope that everyone's following. And then break them down into action plans. I'll give you a couple of examples here. I'm just going to read out a couple of examples because they're all on the screen. Um, in the strategic priority of build a sales pipeline to address the challenge of we don't have a steady flow of leads, your action plans would be consult an agency if you're not, a leads expert or an outreach expert. Set up your outreach infrastructure. When I say outreach, it could be LinkedIn outreach, it could be email outreach, whatever your plans are. But then if you want to create an outreach strategy, you got to break those down. I've got a couple of action plan examples, but these could be, it could be several steps. Whatever is necessary in order to help you execute that initiative. The other initiative is invest in content marketing. So again, this could involve consulting an agency. This could involve then creating that content strategy, right? You list down those action plans and then you decide who's going to do them. Who's going to do each of these plans? When must they be done? What's the budget? Determine the budget, and then what is this dependent on? What goes first and what goes second, etc. This is just a high-level view of your initiatives and action plans. When you write them down, you can use various tools. You can even use just a spreadsheet to list out all of your action items, etc. Then there are various tools that you can use to monitor and measure the progress of your execution. But the idea here is to just give you the framework so that you can start thinking, and hopefully this will spur newer ideas. So that's step number 3, adding initiatives and action plans. Now, I'll come to what I think is, I believe is a very, very crucial step that closes out this process, is this idea of determining your leveraged priority, what is known as your leveraged priority, which means figuring out one priority that makes everything else easier. I learned this concept from Demir Bentley. Demir is a productivity coach, a great one at that. He wrote a great book called Winning the Week. I read up a lot and I learn a lot about productivity, execution, and so on, because I like to translate all of those ideas to you folks, my community, because I feel one of the biggest issues that we have is that of productivity and prioritizing and just getting things done. Because as consultants, most of us are wanted by our clients to do the work, right? We are hired for our own our domain expertise. And as a result of that, there's a lot of other priorities get pushed to the back burner, and we don't have a way of organizing ourselves. So I found this concept of a leveraged priority to be super helpful in determining that one priority that makes everything else easier. Now, when you look at your strategic priorities and initiatives and action plans, it feels like you want to, it will always feel like you want to start hammering them out all at once. You may say, I don't have a steady flow of leads. Our proposals and offerings are not converting. We're not leveraging technology to scale effectively. They all may be valid strategic priorities. I'm not disputing that. The big mistake we make, and I've made this innumerable times, is that we try and do everything at once. We try and, knock off all strategic priorities at once. And, I've learned my lesson on that. What Demir says, and this is a good concept, which kind of aligned with what I've been doing for many years as well, but he's just refined it and he's communicated it so well, is that he recommends that you choose a leveraged priority, a priority that makes everything else easier. There's always a leveraged priority. You may think that you want to do everything yourself, but among these priorities, think about one of them which you want to do first and focus on and knock out of the park. That will help you make all the other priorities easier, executing all the other priorities easier. So type in the chat, let me know what you feel is the leverage priority among these three priorities. The three priorities are about focused on leads, which is building a reliable sales pipeline to address the challenge of leads, building a better offering and communicating that offering to convert better, and using better technology that will enable you to scale. So which of these three priorities is a leverage priority? Which of these three priorities will make the others easier? Now, here's what I believe is your leverage priority. It's this one. Our proposals, offers, it's focusing on the offers and focusing on your offer and ensuring that you have an offering that is converting really well. Now, why is that a leverage priority? A lot of you may think that, um, isn't fixing the problem of leads the leverage priority, because you need the leads first, and then you're gonna, once you get the leads, you can then work on the others. But what if you get the leads and your offers don't convert, right? Then it's just you've wasted a lot of time in landing those leads, but then and the offers not, offers are not converting, your proposals are not converting. So you got to fix the offers and conversion issue first. Sales has to be fixed for your sales process, has to be fixed first before you move into your marketing. When I say sales, I'm talking about the conversion process. When I say marketing, I'm talking about the lead attraction process, right? So if you fix your conversion process and your proposals and your offerings, then it would make the other priorities easier, because you work on the leads next, and when you have leads, you have a better chance of converting because you've already worked on your conversion process, right? So, but what ends up happening is that we end up doing all of these three things at once, and then nothing gets done. Right? Have you ever tried doing a lot of things at once and then nothing gets done? It's just infuriating. It's just, you get upset, you get frustrated. And I know it's counterintuitive. You feel that, you want to do, you can't focus on one thing. How can you focus on one thing? But there's no other way, at least from my experience. When you have a large objective and you want to create a large objective, don't try and do everything at once, because you don't have a huge team. Very likely, most of you on this call, or those of you listening on the podcast, you don't have a very big team. You're either doing this yourself or with or another member of the team, or a smaller team, right? So you want to focus on one priority. I'm not saying that stop the lead generation process. Whatever you don't stop the what's making your business work right now. Right now, you may have some kind of broken lead generation process. Keep doing that, right? Because it would just do whatever it takes to sustain the current business the way it is right now. But in these new initiatives, pick a leveraged priority and just focus on that, whatever is needed, right? So keep the business going, keep the regular, whatever you're doing, keep that going. If there's a lead generation process, yeah, keep that going. I'm not saying shut that down, but in the new initiatives and the new priorities, the new plan, Pick one thing and pick one leverage priority, knock that out of the park, and then move on. If there's one thing you can take from this session, it is this. Focus on that one thing, one priority, and then move on to the next. You will thank me later for this. I've tried doing a lot of things at once, and sorry to say, it doesn't work. It's just too hard. It is too frustrating, especially if you're not resourced um, in a way that allows you to do multiple things at once. So that brings me to the end of this presentation, but it's not actually the end because I got a few other things to discuss that may help. But before that, I want to just go to the chat and see if there are questions that I can help answer. Thank you, folks who have introduced yourselves. Wendy, Sudhakar, Daniel. So I want to see if there are any questions. Do you have any questions on any of these processes that I've talked about? So Daniel asked the question, what should drive the identification of the leverage priority, gut or experience? I mean, it's a process. A leverage priority is you want to think about, okay, what is going to make all of these priorities easier, right? And I just gave you that example of if you work on the conversion process, then the other things are going to be easier because then you have when you work on the leads, it's going to be easier for you because you have a conversion process that will help close those leads. Right? So it's not just gut, it is a process-oriented question. Like, what is the first thing that you should do that would help the others, help you and enable you to make the other things easy? You see? So I hope that answers your question. Good question. Thank you, Danielle. Okay, so for those of you on the call, just type in the chat. Let me know if there's any more questions. I'm going to quickly go through the rest of the calendar for 2025. Consulting Growth Hour for this year is separated. I mean, it's we've created a monthly calendar of topics that we believe will help you plan and focus and just get better at each area of your business. In January, we're focusing on strategic foundations, building a plan for strategic growth, predictable growth. That's what we're doing. The last session was about the consulting roadmap, and this one is about planning. And next month, that's the next session, we're going to be talking about positioning and messaging and building and communicating a position that attracts high-value clients. So look out for the first session on that topic, followed by revenue optimization in March, unlocking higher fees, pricing, and increasing revenue to support long-term growth. That's quarter one. And in April, we're going to be talking about prospecting strategies, warm and cold prospecting strategies that are working today that win trust and attract new sales opportunities, followed by sales mastery, mastering discovery skills and closing six-figure deals. June is all about technology, automation, and AI, leveraging new technology like no-code, low-code, AI for consulting success. July is about time and productivity. Again, one of the topics that's hard because it helps solve a lot of problems and get things done and help you scale smarter, not harder. August is about advanced client acquisition, finding and winning untapped opportunities via personal branding and thought leadership and content. September, start of the fall in this part of the world, we'll talk about fall growth strategies because that's the biggest buying season of the year that I know of. And October is about offerings. October is a time where it's in budget season. How do you make quick offers that get your foot in the door and take advantage of that budget season. November is about expanding client partnerships, strengthening bonds, and expanding your value within existing accounts as the year closes out. And December is about reflection and planning again, learning from this year and preparing for the next. So I look forward to seeing you whenever you're able to join live of these sessions. I believe that they will be super helpful for you. And so, as I mentioned, next month is that's February 2025. Positioning and messaging, build and communicate, how to build and communicate a position that attracts high value clients. So look out for that first topic. And finally, for those of you who want to work with me and you want to speed up the process that we laid out today and add up to 500K in your consulting revenue in 12 months, go to bit.ly/consulting leap and schedule a call and see if we're a fit. There's nothing to there's nothing for sale, but let's see if we're a fit, and let's see if I can add value to you. I'll show you how my process works. And I've had a number of clients that have had success through working with me. Grab that QR code or just go to bit.ly/consulting leap, and you'll find a calendar link where you can schedule a call. So thanks again, folks. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you at the next session. Have a good one.